Well, good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for bearing with us through some technical difficulties to our viewing public. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning Policy Commission to order, and it currently is 6:36 p.m. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. The Planning Policy Commission is in person, but staff or members of the public may be attending virtually or in person. Kristen, do we have a quorum this evening?
Yes, we do.
All right, thank you. So the first item of business this evening is to approve the minutes of our March 27th meeting. Are there any corrections to the draft March 27th meeting minutes provided in your agenda packet? Hearing none, those meeting minutes are approved. And Commissioner Adair, if you could turn your camera on. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. Amanda, has anyone signed up for public comment this evening?
No, Chair, there are no sign-ins for public comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our first item of business this evening is the chair and vice chair elections. We do have 4 different items of business. It's going to a little bit more items than normal, but it is kind of a light lift. Other than some policy discussion towards the end. But we're going to kick it off with our chair and vice chair elections. And the way this process is going to work is first I will call for nominations, and when all of those nominations have been made, we'll close those nominations. If only one nomination is made, that member is considered elected to the position by unanimous consent. If multiple nominations are made for a position, we'll hold time at our next meeting for an election process. At that meeting, commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss the nominees. We'll then ask commissioners to cast votes on the nominees in the order that they were nominated by a roll call vote. Commissioners may vote for only one nominee, but they may vote for themselves. The first commissioner receiving a majority vote is elected to the position, and we will repeat that entire process for the vice chair as well. So we will begin. Are there any nominations for chair? Commissioner Krass.
I nominate Jason Voice for chair.
Are there any other nominations? All right. By unanimous consent. Thank you, Katya. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been great to be your chair this past year. I'm looking forward to the next year working with our new commissioners as well as with our older commissioners. It's a great privilege, and I tell people quite often it's the best job in Issaquah, and I truly believe that. So we have a lot of fun here at this particular commission, and yeah, looking forward to this next year. So thank you. Now we are going to move on to vice chair. So same process. Are there any nominations for the vice chair? Commissioner Zakharoff.
Thank you. I nominate the current vice chair, Jason Patterson.
Are there any other nominees? All right. Well, by unanimous consent, congratulations, Vice Chair Patterson. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I'll just say thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been doing this role for a couple months now, and I've really enjoyed being able to support Jason as chair, as well as representing our commission as well. So looking forward to continuing that for the next year.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Patterson, and thank you, commissioners. Okay. This correlates, but this is going to be presented by our city clerk, and this is going to be our rules and regulations, which we basically update once a year after the election of chair and vice chair. This evening, City Clerk Tisha Gieser will be presenting. So Tisha, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Hi, Planning Commission members. My name's Tisha Gieser, City Clerk. It's nice to see you again. And just so you're aware, it does sound like our alternate member may not be able to hear the room right now. So we're working on that, but wanted you to be aware of that. So the Planning Policy Commission has a very healthy practice of putting their rules and regulations on the agenda once a year, just sort of so you see that they exist. You can look through them if you'd like to. And Stephen Padua always reaches out to the clerk's office to say, is there anything that you'd like us to consider changing this year, which I really appreciate because it means you're following these, which is how it is intended. So there are a few minor things that I wanted to propose to you tonight. These are just some minor kind of cleanup provisions. The first one is that, and this comes up at multiple of our advisory boards and commissions, is whether an alternate can serve as a chair or vice chair. And our sort of policy has been that no, they can't, but it isn't in writing anywhere. And so we added are proposing that a sentence be added to the officers section to clarify that. The second change is regarding some language and it's in a lot of places, a lot of our advisory boards and some of our city council rules, but we'd like to take the opportunity to improve yours. Your conflict of interest language says that if you have a conflict of interest on an item before the commission, that a majority of the commission has to vote to allow you to not vote. As you can imagine, that's a little, in my opinion, a little strange. If you have a financial conflict of interest under state law, you're supposed to recuse yourself from voting on that issue, regardless of whether a majority of the commission agrees with that or not. So the proposed language would remove that and just say, if you are determined to have a conflict of interest, and if you're unsure, we always recommend you reach out to CPD staff who can put you in touch with our city attorney to talk through, but that you would leave the room for that portion of the meeting and not be part of voting on the issue. And the proposed rules also include a few commonly, what's the right way to say this? A few situations that are not conflicts, because often individuals think they may have a conflict, it's not, and they are still allowed to vote under state law. If you have a situation like that, you have a relationship with a nonprofit, this isn't likely to happen with the Planning Commission, but it could, I suppose. You do not have to abstain from voting just because you're on a board, but you may choose to put that on the record and say before you take action on an item, just for on the record, I'd like to share that I have this relationship with this entity and it has been determined this isn't a conflict of interest, so I'll be voting. So I just described two scenarios to you. One where you have a conflict of interest under state law in which you would leave the room, and the second under which you would just kind of for the minutes or whatever, you would just sort of put on the record your conflict of interest. And the section in the rules now spells that out more clearly and provides for what I think is an improved process. The third change that we are proposing is something else that's been in our documents as a city for a long time, and I suspect it started when our city was much smaller and people maybe were uncomfortable voting on hard issues. So it's a rule related to abstaining. So under Robert's rules, when you abstain from voting, you don't vote. You just haven't voted at all. But Issaquah's had this unique rule. Again, it's pervasive in our rules for our advisory boards and council that if you abstain, it's considered to have been a yes vote. But a lot of times commissioners don't understand that. That's a nuance that Issaquah has. And so I'm recommending that that be removed and that if you choose to abstain from voting, you just don't vote. Now, we encourage you to vote. We want 7 people voting on these issues, but if for some reason it is a problem for you to do so, and you're present at the meeting and you're a regular member, you could choose to abstain, but you would need to verbalize that because as you've probably heard, the chair isn't calling for abstentions. So during the debate, you would want to be on the record as saying, I plan to abstain from the vote for one reason or another.
Oh, I can't tell if my flag is up. Looked at me. Is my mic? Okay. So what if there is a tie vote? So therefore an abstention would be a no vote. If you've got 7 people voting, that may be why the abstention was a yes vote.
Well, there's lots of reasons that it could have been a yes vote. But yes, there's implications here. So there's implications when you abstain from voting that can impact the outcome of the vote. Yes, because it also reduces your vote threshold. So let's say that you have wonderful attendance tonight, but let's say there were only 6 of you in attendance, 6 members total in attendance at a meeting. To pass a measure, to pass a recommendation onto the city council, you need a majority of those 6 members,
Correct.
which would be 4. Majority of those present and voting, that'd be 4 members. But if one of the 6 decided to abstain, a majority of those present and voting would only need to be a majority of 5, which would be 3 votes. So it has impacts. Abstaining has impacts, and we're certainly not recommending it, but I do think when people, the general understanding of an abstention is that you're not on record, and so I do see that it's a bit confusing as the rule is now, because a member could abstain not realizing how it's impacting the vote.
So if there was so if you have 2 alternates seated, then, and a regular member abstains, would it not make sense for an alternate then to then vote, because that would standardize the yes/nos?
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think first of all, I think the situation is hopefully not highly common. But yes, I think as a member, if you knew there was an issue on your agenda that you weren't comfortable voting on, you might consider either not being present for part of the meeting or checking with staff to see about, or the chair about an alternate serving in your seat. Your rules don't really provide for that. They say an alternate member serves in the absence of a regular member. So technically you'd need to not be here for them to move into your chair and vote, but yes.
So could you change the language to read absence of a member or abstention? Just simply insert the words or abstention?
You could do that. I see a few issues with that possibly, which is that if an alternate, was coming to a meeting not prepared to vote on a particular item and then could potentially at the last minute be put in a situation where they were expected to vote, that could create an awkward situation. So I think, and these are recommendations, and that was the conclusion of my presentation. Those are the 3 recommendations I have tonight. There are certainly multiple ways to approach your rules, leaving them as is, putting some other language in there. So you could choose to approve these tonight. You could choose to approve 1 or 2 of the 3, none of the 3. I'm open to any questions the other commissioners might have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tisha. And I do want to remind the commissioners, please let me call on you, because there is a process and an order to this. So the first thing we have to do is actually make a motion before we can even debate or ask questions. So we want to make sure we're doing the process correctly. Because there's amendments, would someone like to make a motion to open discussion for these amendments as far as our rules and regulations? Commissioner Alliner.
I move to open discussion.
Do we need it to be more formal than that? Okay, I'm looking for staff for help there. Phone a friend. All right, do we need a second?
Chair, before you vote on these, you would want a more formal motion, but I don't see a problem with asking questions at this point and having some initial discussion if you'd like, before formally moving. And the wording for the proposed motion is in the staff memo that was included.
Okay. Our staff is fantastic. That's why we keep them around. All right, so let's open it up for discussion and questions. Does anyone have, yes, Commissioner Matthews.
I'd like to go back to, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. Helen's, okay. On her question, I'm not sure if it was answered, but what does happen if there is a tie in the voting?
That's a great question. A motion fails. So there needs to be a majority of members voting and present and voting to pass a measure, unless there's some other rule in place. I'm not aware of any other rules for the Planning Commission, except actually amending your rules. It says it requires a majority of the full membership, so 4 members present. But for all your other recommendations to the City Council, it would be that majority needed.
So here's a follow-up question. If it fails, does it come back up in the next meeting, or does someone have to propose that it be added back into the agenda?
We're getting into Parliamentary Procedure 201 here. No, that's okay. I love talking about parliamentary procedure. There are a couple of mechanisms. So one of the things at the meeting, there's actually a tool you can use where you reconsider the vote, which brings it back before, if that passes, brings the same vote back before the group and people can choose to vote differently. Another thing would be, it could be renewed at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Matthews. Anyone else have any questions regarding the three amendments that Tisha has proposed? And I'm also, just so you know, I am looking also at Commissioner Adair, and there is a yellow hand icon in case you do want to make comments. So I am also, I've got my vice chair here to keep me honest, so we're not going to miss you. These all seem pretty standard to me, this chair voice. It seems like good housekeeping, best practices. I'm not too worried about abstentions. They don't happen often, and when people do their homework, they usually are going to go one way or the other. If it becomes a problem, it is something we can address next year. So I think we're going to be okay. Any other discussion?
I can't figure out if I can just, you can see that I'm asking, maybe somebody can show me that later.
You could just do one of these.
Just use
to me.
my real
Yeah.
hand?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So there may be some matters before this commission where I will need to abstain.
Sure.
I still need to find out from the city attorney if that is the case. And it would not be a matter of not having an opinion, it may be a matter of personal interest.
Well, at the moment, you're an alternate, so remember that. So,
I
but if you are a
understand
regular
that.
member that night, then that would be obviously something you'd need to consider.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion around these three amendments? Okay, now we need some formality, correct? Would somebody like to read the motion on the floor, and we'll get a second and a vote? Commissioner Zakharoff.
I move to adopt the rules and regulations with the proposed amendments as presented tonight.
Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Those rules and regs amendments have passed. So thank you, Tisha, appreciate it. Always fantastic presentations. I saw the last one last Thursday, and I know they are always exciting, so they don't ever think we ever get tired of hearing them. Yeah, right. Planning 301. Parliamentary Rules 301. Okay, we are going to move on, and this is actually Planning 101, so that's apt. And tonight, our principal planner, Kristen Leeson, is going to be presenting. So Kristen, when you are ready, please take it away.
All right. Good evening. My name is Kristen Leeson. I'm a principal planner with the Community Planning and Development Department. And we're going to talk about Planning 101. So, let me make this bigger for you. There we go. You know, it's just there are basics in learning. There are so many different levels of governments and jurisdictions to what we do. So it's important that you all understand how it works and where we're coming from and where it goes after it leaves you. So we just wanted to introduce some of that to you all tonight. For a lot of you, this is new. For some of this is a refresher. So planning, it shapes land use, it shapes infrastructure, it shapes community development and transportation. We do our very best to maximize health and safety of all those who live and work here. We, particularly the Planning Policy Commission, take a very broad view and say, what do we want the city to look like as a whole, and how are these things going to work together, and how are we going to get there? And it ensures that we have choices when it comes to transportation and types of houses that they want to live in and where they want to live. So it's big. It forms the way we live. So the state of Washington has the Growth Management Act that was adopted back in 1990, and it is concerned with 13 different topics, a lot. So environmental protection, historic preservation, community or public participation, ongoing public participation, affordable housing, concentrated urban growth, so preventing sprawl, natural resources, transportation. It covers the gamut. But that's sort of what guides us in every agency and what they do. So big picture, you start with the state legislature, right? they had their legislative session every year, and they propose new legislation that has become more and more related to planning and what we do than it has in the past. Then you have the Department of Commerce. Then you narrow it down a little bit to Puget Sound Regional Council, most often referred to as PSRC, Puget Sound Regional Council. Then King County, and then Little Issaquah. Okay? So legislature, like I said, they establish and enact bills. And back in 2021, they enacted House Bill 1220. And it was a huge umbrella for what was to come next. It talked about different types of affordable housing, emergency shelters, transitional housing, coming up with regulations to prevent or mitigate displacement of people, diversity, accessory dwelling units, just covered everything. And from that point on, now this is my opinion, but I think this is what happened, people have taken bits of this, the legislature has, and now we have House Bill 1337, which you all just acted on regarding additional or accessory dwelling units. 1110, which regarding middle housing. We talked briefly a while ago about co-living, House Bill 1998. 5240, which controls our timelines and when when things have to be done. There are already things in place, but those have been sped up quite a bit. On the right is a list of, and some of these are duplicates, yes, but are a list of real bills that are coming through now. The legislature just finished, so we'll be busy next year. I'm not sure which of these all passed, but you'll find out soon enough. So then you have the Department of Commerce, part of the state. They provide guidance to the cities when we are writing our ordinances. If we have questions, they help us out. We, particularly with middle housing, had numerous discussions with the Department of Commerce. They then later on ensured that what we are proposing and what we adopted is consistent and complies with the state law, with our RCWs, then a revised Code of Washington. They also provide grants. So the state enacts all these laws, and we need people to help us do it. So they provide grants for consultants or for extra staffing in order to get these things done. Hi, Tim. Puget Sound Regional Council, PSRC, they have jurisdiction over 4 counties. They have jurisdiction over Kitsap, Snohomish, Pierce, and King counties. They also have their own comprehensive plan, which is now Vision 2050. And we need to comply with their comprehensive plan. They certify our comprehensive plans every 10 years. So the big overhaul that we just did, that has to be certified by the Puget Sound Regional Council before it's fully in place. They provide us grants as well, primarily for infrastructure, but for some other things that come out. And then they also approve and monitor regional growth centers. Now, I don't know if a lot of you knew this, but we have a regional growth center. It's in purple here. It goes from west of SR 900 up to southeast 56th, east to Pickering Barn, down to 7th, and then back over to past SR 900. This is where we want all of our, or the most of our growth. This is where we want our densest growth to occur by 2044. So several years ago, I think Stephen told you all this, we adopted the Central Issaquah Plan and Central Issaquah Standards, which would help hopefully allow for and guide denser developments in this area. Being a regional growth center, if we apply for grants, we have an advantage. It doesn't guarantee us grant funding, but it gives us a little heads up in applying for applications. Next, we have King County. Yes, they too have their own comprehensive plan, which we must abide by, so we do that. King County Countywide Planning Policies, or the CPPs. That's how they're often referred. We have they provide the Urban Growth Capacity Report, which, again, every 8 to 10 years, the city's jurisdictions are required to accept growth targets. We accept housing targets, and we accept job targets. And we come up with how much capacity we have in our city for both jobs and housing. Takes us about 1.5 years to do this, and then we go through another 1.5 years of negotiations with all of the other jurisdictions within King County to decide who gets what. And I think I've mentioned this before, but for 2044, our targets for housing are 3,500 units, and for jobs, it's 7,950 units. That's the new units that we need to achieve. They also have Metro. You know about Metro. We work a lot, our transportation planner, Jason, works a lot with Metro. So this is a rundown of how things work in the city. We have our comprehensive plan, which is the overarching vision. It has visions, goals, and policies, and you all have seen that. From those, we have functional plans, like our parks and recreation plan, our stormwater plan, our mobility action plan. Those all are 5-year guidelines of what we need to get done to implement the comprehensive plan in the next 5 years. From that, we have our citywide strategic plan. This also looks at the next 5 years, but says what actions are we going to take from these functional plans to make this happen? And then that goes to the budget. And council says, we need to get all these things done. Some of them are on the capital improvement plan. We need to fund it all. That's how that comes about. And then and the land use code helps to implement all of this as well. And then we have our performance metrics. So at the end of every year, it's on our website. We have our performance metrics page, and you can see how we're doing. Here's our goal, here's what we've done. And it goes all the way back to the comp plan. What's not working, and what do we need to fix? So it comes full circle every year. And it comes to you. You all are actually a group that is required by the state. And so thank you for volunteering to do this. You are responsible for maintenance of the comprehensive plan, all of the neighborhood plans, which are a part of the comprehensive plan. Right now, we have Central Issaquah and we have Old Town, but in the very near future, we plan on doing several more. You're also responsible for anything in Title 18, which are the land use code amendments. So all of those, you all review and make recommendations to our city council. So this is my last slide. So here's how it goes. So state legislation sets an agenda of things that we need to do through bills that they've enacted, as well as council has priorities that we need to look at, and administrative priorities that we need to carry out. So we filter through those and we come up with our work plan. Excuse me. Some of those go through PPC, some do not. You all review what is supposed to come through you. We notify Commerce and we say, this is what we're proposing. Every time we have a proposed amendment coming through, we notify Commerce and say, this is what we're proposing. And if they have comments, they will send them back to us, or again, we meet with them. Then you all hold a public hearing and you make a recommendation to City Council. That recommendation actually goes to a council committee, which is typically the Planning, Development, and Environment Committee. We work with them for 1-2 meetings. They make a recommendation to the full City Council, who then takes action, and then we send that to Commerce for final approval to show them that we comply. So that's the process. And I should have told you in the middle, stop me and ask me anything anywhere, but I am open to questions now.
Yeah, no, I think we want to definitely ask a few questions, I would imagine. I'm thinking of that, what is that, that Schoolhouse Rock, I'm a bill on Capitol Hill. So, yeah, the long, strange process, right? But yeah, we've got some time, and I definitely, this is a lot for anybody, even for someone like who's seen this multiple times. So let's open it up for questions, and we can probably spend 10 minutes on this at least. So again, if anyone has questions, please just let me know. Commissioner Mole. Yep, you want a microphone.
You had said that the city is considering developing other districts. What would those other districts perhaps be?
We're not interested in developing other districts. We're interested in developing plans, neighborhood plans for the existing neighborhoods that we have. So in our most recent comprehensive plan, we updated our neighborhoods. But we have Old Town, we have Central Issaquah, we have Issaquah Valley, we have Tallis, Issaquah Highlands, North Issaquah. There are, I think, 13 different neighborhoods that we have, and only 2 have plans. 2 are planned neighborhoods already. But then only 2 outside of those have plans. So we have about 9 different areas where we want to work with the neighborhoods and say, what do you want this to look like?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Matthews.
Yeah, sorry, this is probably because you haven't worked on these plans yet, but I know like Montreux and Tallis have HOAs. So out of curiosity, what kind of overlays, you touched a little bit on this on the last meeting. How does your neighborhood plan work with those HOAs? Does it, like, they go away and don't take priority if they do some major developments, or how does that work, really?
So we've started to come up with criteria, but we haven't worked them through the administration yet. But those communities with HOAs, yes, they know what they want their housing to look like, and they know what they want their landscaping to look like. But is there maybe some transportation route, or is there some public art that they really, really want to get, and we can find a way to help them? Is there something else in their neighborhood that their HOAs don't control that the city can help with? Maybe there's a toolbox. So you have a neighborhood that needs, I used to work in Houston, and we had toolboxes for neighborhoods, and they could come and borrow tools and go do maintenance on their houses, that kind of thing that we used to work with. So, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
But you're right, when it comes to Tallis and Issaquah Highlands, those are planned neighborhoods, and at this time, don't need to be there. They would not rise to the top of the priority list.
I think Kristen got off light. Any other questions for Kristen on this topic? It's a lot to digest. I mean, it's a pretty unique process, but obviously staff's here to help if anyone wants to find out more information about the process. I know Stephen, I know Kristen would be happy to help. So again, feel free to reach out. And I do see another hand, Commissioner Adair.
She's trying to talk.
Commissioner Adair, are you muted? We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You could type it into the chat. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. Do you have a question? Commissioner Adair, do you have a question?
1 second. Yes, I'm typing it in.
Oh, we could hear you now.
We can hear you. So you can just speak.
Oh.
So she did put it in chat, and I'll just repeat it out. I
Oh,
heard.
wait, you can hear me now. Okay, great, sorry. So I heard mention of the environmental committee, but I don't see where it is on the slide, or did I mishear that, or where does that come?
So the environmental board is just it's a separate board from us. They're not involved in our process. If we have things that need to go to, if there is anything involving parks, anything involving economic vitality, anything involving the environment, such as the tree code, which is about to come to you all, then we will take those to those other boards and commissions first and get their feedback before we bring it back to Planning Policy Commission. That's how they fall in.
Okay, well, thank you, Commissioner Adair. I know there's some technical problems, but thankfully we record all this. Commissioner Matthews.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I did see someone sent in a letter to the environmental committee, so then I started going down the rabbit hole. So I wondered so they view those items before they come to us and kind of work through some of the issues first? Is that how it goes?
They often do. So Planning Policy Commission's primary purviews are over housing and land use and the land use code. And there are other boards and commissions that cover things such as parks and the environment and transportation. So those boards and commissions are advisory boards. So they make recommendations or comments to the Planning Policy Commission. Planning Policy Commission then makes the final recommendation to the city council, if it's part of the comprehensive plan or land use code. If it's not part of those, then this commission has nothing to do with it. You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you, Commissioner Adair, and thank you, Commissioner Matthews, and everybody, Commissioner Mole, for your questions. And I also do want to say thank you to our unsung heroes this evening, Tim and Chance. You guys are doing great. My mic gave out, so now I'm borrowing Jesse's as well, so it's just one of those evenings. But if that's it, we're going to move on to our last order of business this evening. Okay, and I believe Kristen is also presenting this, but this part of our evening is going to be a discussion around the additional Title 18 policy amendments. Kristen's going to walk us through these as our final item. So, Kristen, one more time.
So yes, we continue with amendments tonight, and we will be back, I believe, next week or the week after that with amendments as well. And then the public hearing is at the end of May for all of the policy amendments that we were doing. As with the last amendments we brought to you at the last meeting, there's not a lot of policy discussion to be had with these. They are more minor amendments, but we still want to preview these with you before you have to ever make a decision on them. So again, for you all and for the public, we did a land use code overhaul in 2023, and we continue to review to make sure that it's good, that it's right, that there aren't mistakes. And when you have this many people working together to totally overhaul a 450-page document, there are bound to be mistakes, and we have found them, or things that could be better. So we're working on it. So tonight, we're talking about more policy amendments. So again, just like last time, are the proposed changes clear, or are there additional changes needed for clarity? The first one that we have several levels of review, 1 through 5. 4 goes to the Development Commission. 5 comes to the Planning Policy Commission for recommendation to City Council. Most of what we do is legislative, so it is not site-specific. You know, quasi-judicial, site-specific, legislative, which is more citywide. That is what we do. There is a requirement right now that we provide a notice of application to the public. Well, since most of our initiatives are initiated by the city, not quite sure who we would notify, so we're trying to exempt that from this requirement. The other one is that there's a comment period on applications submitted, a 14-day comment period, because usually when you do something, an application is submitted or posted on the site. You've seen the big white signs? We don't have a place to post a sign for things all over the city, so we are hoping to become exempt from that as well. And the last one is notice of decision. We post it on our website that it's been completed. We send it to Commerce if we need to, but as far as sending it out to parties of interest, which is where the notice of decision usually goes, that again is something that we feel the city should be exempt from doing, just for legislative items only, not for the site-specific. Building a new building, building a new park, these are different. You will see more added to this when it comes through for the public hearing. Last, in our old code, banquet, meeting, and reception halls were allowed in mixed use and mixed use central Issaquah. They were inadvertently left out of this code. They will be added back in. We have a similar situation with dry cleaners and pressing stations, and one other one came up. So we are actually now going to go through the entire, all 4 of the old codes and the new one last time to make sure that we've gotten them all, but for now, this is the one tonight. The last one is another House bill. It essentially lists all the things that we can't do in order to allow for residential uses to move into commercial and mixed-use buildings that exist. And this all applies to buildings that do not change or expand. They can change, say, the facade or the windows, that kind of thing, but they cannot expand the building. So this is all allowing for residential within the existing footprint. So things that we may not do are impose density restrictions that prevent the addition of a 50% more density than that underlying zone would typically allow. We are not allowed to impose parking, architectural, or permitting requirements beyond what currently exists. We are not allowed to prohibit units within any part of a building except on the ground floor where commercial and is required. That would be along parts of Front Street and parts of Central Issaquah. We are not allowed to deny a permit for the addition of units within an existing non-conforming building due to non-conformities, such as, say, maybe they don't have enough parking for the existing use, or they don't have the setbacks that we would typically require. Usually we would say, no, you can't do that. In this case, we can't say that. And we cannot require a concurrency report for buildings that were permitted 3 or more years prior to. So the items that you see in green were items that we need to address. The items in black are already in our code and don't need to be addressed. So the first one is the 50%. This is really interesting. We have a zone, say, that allows for a maximum of 10 units per acre. And in that zone, there is a commercial use building. Instead of only allowing 10 residential units per acre, we have to allow 15 per acre. So that's what the state's telling us, and that's what this amendment would do. Parking exemptions. We cannot require them to increase the amount of parking that is there. Even if there are 100 residents and only 50 parking spaces, we cannot require them to increase the number of parking spaces. What we can do is require them to keep the existing parking spaces that are there if they meet the commercial use that was already there. This isn't parking exemptions, this is concurrency. I had the wrong title, I apologize. This is concurrency. We cannot require a concurrency report for a project that was permitted 3 or more years ago. So concurrency is what keeps our infrastructure, our roads, from being totally overcrowded. With 3 exceptions, I believe, maybe 4, there are a few places where we can do it. But typically when people come in, they have to tell us how many units or how many trips their development is going to produce. If it produces a certain number of trips, and I think that's 30, they are required to provide us with a concurrency or a traffic study. And from that, we determine what their mitigations are going to be for the traffic that they are going to produce. But in this case, we are not allowed to do it. They can tell us how many trips they're going to provide, or they're going to make. My words are gone, I apologize. But we cannot require them to do the additional work after that, even if it's over 30. Yeah, I got my titles wrong. The last one is, I got my titles mixed up, so now I'm all confused. But okay. I feel horrible. This happened right before I came here, and I apologize. Concurrency. I believe this is parking exemptions. I'll have to look at this one, and I apologize. They are exempt. They have an exemption in parking. And I apologize off the top of my head. These are mixed up, and I tried to do something fancy right before I came to the meeting, and that's my lesson learned. So, but I will get back to you on that one. So like I said, you're going to see these again on April, the second meeting in April and the first meeting in May. We'll come back for a public hearing. These dates are wrong. We'll come back for a public hearing at the end of May, then to Planning and Development, PDE, Planning Development Environment Committee, and then to Council in June. I apologize. And are there any thoughts on the proposed changes?
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, please, Commissioner Kraus.
Hi, Kristen. Commissioner Kraus. Just to help some context, are there any examples of what's been done in the past of this conversion of commercial to multifamily, or anything that's in the pipeline that's in the city, so you can say, oh, this building over here is doing, just, I'm trying to wrap my head around what this would be, like, do you take the Lazy Boy Furniture Store, is that an example?
That would be an example, and we do.
There's no one shops there, and they have a big parking lot. No, I'm just curious if there's anything in the pipeline that's actually,
There's something in the pipeline, but it's not been applied for yet, so.
okay, so it's not on the development site list.
Correct, it would not be
Okay.
there yet.
Because that helps dimensionalize what we're talking about. Like, is this like a commercial one that's going to 4 units, or is this something like a big box store that can go to
It
100
could-
units?
It could be anything. It could be something on Sunset that is currently a commercial building that was going to be converted to residential. It could be an office building. You've got, 12th and Maple office building. That could be converted. Yeah, they're all different sizes. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I assume we're not the only municipality or whatever is dealing with this. Is there any examples like that you've seen where it's been done in Redmond or Bellevue? I'm just trying to wrap my head around what these
Not
kinda
yet,
look
but
like.
I know that the city of Seattle is trying to do that right now with a lot of their vacant office buildings. So if you ask if it can be big office buildings, yes, it can. Yeah, I'll see if I can find some in Seattle and get those to you.
But the idea is like if Home Depot was to sell, that could be turned into residential.
It could.
Got to thank Olympia for this one. Commissioner Millender Irwin.
Thank you. I had a question in regards to the parking exemptions, and the note that I had flagged for myself is it would certainly be nice to modify the existing parking plan, and it looks like that's an exemption or cannot be done. Can you just offer an explanation as to why the parking is restricted to be as is, when there might be an opportunity to possibly expand it for, I guess, development of multifamily housing?
So it's a state requirement, so we can't do that,
Okay.
which is why we're not. But we're also, the state is also, there's a lot of state legislation that has come through recently that is actually not allowing us to provide any parking within a certain distance of a transit stop or a major transit stop, not all transit stops, just major, that are limiting the number of parking stalls that we can have per unit. One that just came through the pipeline I'm not saying these are happening now, that it came through, I'm not sure if it passed, but you can only allowed 0.5 parking stalls per multifamily unit and only one parking space per single-family unit. So the state is really trying to limit the number of parking spaces in hopes that more people will rely on transit rather than cars.
Makes sense. Thank you.
There it
welcome.
is. Commissioner Mole.
How does this intersect with zoning? Because in some of the zoning within the city, multifamily is not allowed, or rather, residential is not allowed. So does this mean that this supersedes all zoning?
Housing is allowed in almost every zone in the city. And yes, it would supersede the zoning. But it is allowed in almost every zone in the city. I think we have 4, maybe where it's not allowed. That would be up in Issaquah Highlands, in one of the zones up there. Commercial, in the Issaquah Highlands commercial zone, UVCOM. Yes.
What about, do we have any land that is zoned industrial?
We
Because
do.
I know in the city of Seattle, residential is not allowed in industrial zoning.
It's not allowed in the industrial zone, and so that's a good question. I need to double check. The state didn't say anything on that, so when their guidance comes out, I need to double check. It's not out yet. But right now, the way it's stated, you have to allow residential. So I'll need to see if they follow up on that and get more guidance. We do have industrial zones, though.
Yeah, that does seem odd that, again, if you have a commercial district, that just because a commercial owner decides to sell, that you could turn that into residential. But I know you guys are dealing with the flood of bills from Olympia. We're all finding out what's in these fantastic bills. Yeah, I mean, again, I think for the most part, again, with the permitted table use, as well as the review process, this is pretty standard stuff. Obviously, the third item is really something more from this state, but as far as, again, the permitted use table and the review process table, that's just house cleaning. I mean, ultimately, is what we're talking about. So,
Right.
and because we missed it, we still have to go through the formal process to add it back. So when you're talking about those two things that we missed as far as the permitted use table, so again, there's nothing nefarious, there's nothing bad here, it's just, there has to be a formal process to put them back. Is there anyone else you'd like to comment as far as Kristen's presentation? And then this is going to come back no more times. This will come back at the public hearing
Correct.
where we'll have action on it. So again, it's pretty straightforward, but if you do have more questions, you can feel free to reach out to staff about it. But again, it seems like house cleaning and some guidance from our capital. Would anyone else like to comment before we close this part of our regular business? Vice Chair Patterson.
Quick question on the review process table. How are those legislative decisions being communicated today? How are you meeting the requirement today, I guess?
We do publish it in the paper when we're about to have a public hearing. Every meeting where these are going to be discussed they're on our website, and then the public hearing notices, and then, through public meetings.
Yeah.
And then when it's done, we send it to Commerce.
And I would imagine some of those things will continue, like we do our PPC meeting announcements or agenda stuff, like that'll continue. I'm assuming it just won't be a requirement.
Correct. And when we do things like the comprehensive plan, that's a bigger notice. I don't do social media, but you have your Neighborly, and I really don't do social media, but you have all these other platforms where they're advertised. And so our communications department advertises those on as many platforms as they can. When we have something bigger, when it's something like the clarifying amendments, this is it, but otherwise. Yeah, neighborhood plans, I know for Old Town, when we did Old Town, we sent out postcards to all of the residents to let them know of upcoming things and what it meant, and websites and so forth.
No, not at all. Commissioner Matthews.
It just occurred to me, I'm a little confused about the whole footprint. Is it when they're converting a building, say you brought up Home Depot as an example, are you saying the footprint has to stay the same, but the envelope, it could be like 3 stories instead? You knew this was coming?
You busted me. As soon as the word
Right.
footprint came out of my mouth, I thought, that was the wrong word. Envelope.
Envelope, so
Envelope.
you have to reuse the existing envelope?
Yes. So no, you cannot go up. If you're going to go up, then you have to meet our regulations.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Mole.
When you say envelope, do you mean that the structure needs to remain? Because one of the issues the city of Seattle is having with converting office buildings to residential is windows are very different in residential than they are in office. And the plenum, you don't have any place to run your plumbing in a normal office building. So are you saying that it needs to be, that the exterior structure remains?
I'm saying that the exterior structure remains. But clearly, it needs to be safe. It needs to be livable. So if you need to put in more lines and more toilets, that's great. But the outside walls have to remain the same. You can change out the windows. You need more windows? You can do that, but the framing of the building needs to remain the same.
So you can cut holes in a cement wall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess just for my own edification, I mean, is this something people wanted, or is this just a great idea that came from nowhere? I mean, I don't really see how people would want to convert a box store. I mean, I suppose, again, if it's a push for density, I understand it. I mean, that's basically what the last 2 years have been. But practically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I would see someone that would sell a commercial piece of property, they would probably most likely try to sell it to another commercial owner. I mean, Lazy Boy it used to be Staples. But, I would assume they would, right, but I assume it would transfer into those hands. I'm just wondering, is there a big ask for this?
Not here, not in Issaquah that I've seen, and I don't think it's a push for density as it is just a push for housing. It's just another option for housing.
Yeah, Commissioner Kraft.
Hi. So, you woke us all up with this, so this is good. So do you guys have a preference? Do you guys want to see this happen? Like, do you have a point of view that staff wants to see some of these conversions happen, or are we just following what the state says? If it happens, here's the rules. So I'm curious if you guys have a point of view.
No, it's a state requirement, and we welcome it. If someone wants to come in, great. More places for people to live. Let's build up the supply. Yeah.
Okay, before I get to Commissioner Millender Irwin, does anyone else like to speak that hasn't spoken yet? I want to make sure we offer everyone an opportunity to speak. It's, again, this is also me getting used to a much bigger dais, so you'll have to excuse me. It's going to take me a meeting or two. But no one else would like to speak? Commissioner, I just want to make sure other people get
No,
the
I
opportunity
used, you called me a
too.
different name than my last.
I thought last time it was Commissioner Mole.
Oh, I thought I heard Commissioner Miller-Erland.
Yeah, that's me. I have no further comment.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Millender Irwin. Commissioner Mole?
Yes, what I was going to say was that we are in the path of growth. There are plenty of areas in the state where there is there is a limited amount of growth. And it is for those areas of the state that they run into problems with converting, with having a use for those old buildings, and B malls and things like that, and C malls that are just dying. And I'm sure the push came from areas that are not in the path of growth.
Yeah, no, it's all interesting. It just, I know Issaquah is limited by our own topography, and there's a lot of reasons why we can't expand. So, yeah, it's just interesting. He said lots happened in the last 2 years, I think, as far as planning goes. So, yeah, it's been busy the last 2 years. Any other further questions or comments for Kristen? I'm looking on the TV too for Commissioner Adair. Okay. Well, thank you, Kristen, for that presentation. We'll be looking forward to seeing this come back to us, what do you say, May? The public hearings in May?
End of May.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Well, thank you. That takes care of our regular business this evening. So we're going to move on to reports, and we'll start with city council updates.
I don't have any tonight.
Okay. Any other business or announcements?
No, not that I
Okay.
can think of. Thank you.
That's perfectly fine. So, okay, I'm looking at the commission. Is there anything for the good of the order? Anything that you guys would like to bring up before we adjourn? All right, well, again, thank you all very much. It's great to meet Commissioner Mole in person. Commissioner Adair, we miss you. And again, want to say thank you. I think I can speak for Vice Chair Patterson and myself. Thank you again for entrusting us for another year. And I also want to thank our incredible staff. We don't often say it enough, but Amanda, Kristen, Valerie, Tisha, and of course our unsung heroes tonight, Tim and Chance. Thank you again for working through these problems. It's amazing how many of these meetings really go well. And then on one night, everything simply just does not work. But it's amazing for how much this room changes hands. Everything does go pretty smooth. So again, thank you to the gentleman upstairs. So with all business concluded, we're going to adjourn our meeting this evening quite early. So hopefully you guys can go get some dinner, or you can get to your lacrosse game, and we'll adjourn at 7:35 p.m. Thank you. Yeah, I think you'll make it.